Hey kiddies, it's Triple Feature Tuesday once again, and unfortunately, it's the Death Trifecta Triple Feature this week. Yeah, I'm sorry, I had to help out some family members last week. Everybody seems to have caught the plague, so I didn't have time to get a video together this week, and in my absence, everybody died! It's apparently hazardous to one's health to be 69 in English and in show business. Because 3 famous people have died in as many weeks. It's actually 2 this week, and then 1 that I'm pulling in because it fits the goofiness of the theme better. So we're going to look at the most iconic film role of Lemmy Kilmister, David Bowie, and Alan Rickman. We're going to be going in order of iconography and just incredibleness of the performance. And we're going to give a special shout out to poor Angus Scrimm, who also died this week. Angus is not English, he was an American actor, famous for playing the Tall Man, the villain in the 4 Phantasm films, and the hopefully to be released soon 5th and probably final Phantasm film, Phantasm Ravager. Angus Scrimm is a Grammy Award winner alongside David Bowie and Lemmy. He used to write liner notes for albums and won a Grammy Award for it. And in addition, he also wrote the liner notes for Meet the Beatles, which is one of the first, if not first, American Beatles release. So good on Angus. Our actual triple feature, our menu is going to include Tromeo and Juliet, Labyrinth, and Die Hard. Tromeo and Juliet, the brainchild of Lloyd Kaufman, co-creator of The Toxic Avenger, and James Gunn, right? That James Gunn. Their traumatized version of William Shakespeare's classic play, Romeo and Juliet. The 2 of them felt the show needed to be updated with, graphic violence, nudity, and, just a smidge of incest, because what couldn't use incest? But all throughout, the narrator, standing in for the chorus in the play, is Lemmy, who is basically reading cue cards the entire time, except it's Lemmy, so he's just charming throughout the whole thing in the way he delivers all the lines, with, half serious commitment to the thing and half he just couldn't be bothered and doesn't really give a shit. And half he was probably high on something at the time, but very, very charming. And Lemmy would go on to pop up in other Troma movies like Terra Firma. He pops up as a television reporter and later the spokesperson for Hummus, the tacked on PSA about hermaphrodites, starring Matt Stone and Trey Parker. And he would, I think his last on-screen role was actually the president in Return to Nukem High, still directed by Lloyd Kaufman, because Lloyd keeps giving and giving, and we love him for it. Unfortunately, Lemmy died. The thing of it is, Lemmy died in 2015, but he died 4 days after his 70th birthday, so he may as well have been English and 69 and died, this year, so I'm just kind of pulling him along, and we didn't get a chance to talk about Lemmy, so we're talking about Lemmy now. The whole world was shocked at the beginning of the week because David Bowie just up and died. Apparently, David Bowie had cancer, and after a short battle, he succumbed to it. And I'm trying to look at it as he has not died so much as he's gone back to his home planet, or else I'm just gonna lose my mind because, like a lot of people my age, we remember Labyrinth, the last big screen movie directed by Jim Henson. This was about 4 years before he died. Man, nothing but death, this triple feature. It's depressing. But Labyrinth is just great. It's Jennifer Connelly doing The Wizard of Oz with Muppets everywhere. And the big bad guy is David Bowie and David Bowie's crotch playing Jareth, the Goblin King. And there are a lot of times in film where, actor meets part and it comes together beautifully. And one of those times is Jareth. He's just David Bowie in a giant wig and a riding crop. And, is junk on display pretty much throughout the entire movie, and he's just utterly charming and sinister and evil and yet completely goofy at the same time. It's really something. And all throughout the movie is his music. David Bowie wrote all the songs and performed, I think, all but one. Yeah, he's the lead singer for all but one of the songs. The Fire Dance, or what is it? Getting Down? Chili Down, and I think he does the background vocals on that. It's just great. I mean, here's the thing. The reason why Labyrinth is number 2 and not number 3 is because it's still sort of divisive. There are even people of like my age range that grew up with it. There are a lot of people that either love it or they hate it, and there's no mid ground for it. And unfortunately, there are more than enough people that hate it that it just doesn't become, the closer movie for this triple feature. But oh my god, David Bowie's so good in it. And Jennifer Connelly is just lovely. She was 14 years old, and she's holding her own with David Bowie. And okay, David Bowie is not the greatest actor, but that's not what I mean. I mean, she's a 14-year-old girl, and she was a David Bowie fan and has to act alongside of him and, get into verbal arguments with him in the movie. It's really something. And when I learned the news that he passed, that was the first music that I put on. Like, I had all my David Bowie music on shuffle, but the first thing I did was put on music from Labyrinth. Unfortunately, it was Underground, which was probably an inappropriate choice, but it was like the song I really wanted to listen to because it reminded me of him, and he's all happy in the song. And David Bowie, long career playing smaller characters in some films and bigger characters in others. Great moments that you or great movies with him you might want to check out. The Man Who Fell to Earth, of course. We talked about David Bowie a couple months ago with the British bit part Assassins or something like that. Where he is a contract killer, or he's the bad guys. It's like little side bad guys with British people. I can't remember all the titles for these things. I'm sorry. Where he's a hitman in John Landis's Into the Night with Jeff Goldblum and Michelle Pfeiffer. He plays Andy Warhol, of all people, in the Basquiat biopic with Jeffrey Wright. Most recently, the thing I can remember him in is he played Nikola Tesla in The Prestige by Chris Nolan with Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman. And yes, I know what you're thinking. If I could have found a third historical character that David Bowie was playing in a movie, we'd be doing that triple feature next week, because David Bowie. I think he only did 2, and so that's what we're going with. And this week we're talking about Labyrinth, which I still love so much. And finally, there's Die Hard, the feature film debut of Alan Rickman, who was in his 40s. He was a fairly successful theatrical actor, but he'd never really done movies before at all. And, this is when he hit. And after Die Hard, everybody wanted him to be their bad guy in every movie because he is incredible in this movie. While there is debate on the Labyrinth and its place in film history, nobody disagrees on Die Hard. It is one of the greatest action movies, and up until, Fury Road came out last year, I would have said it's the best action movie, but I don't know. It's tough. It's a debate now. But John McClane, Bruce Willis, stuck in a high-rise in L.A., filled to the brim with criminals pretending to be terrorists and wanting to kill all the hostages and himself throughout the whole movie, led by Hans Gruber. Alan Rickman is so immediately sleazy and yet utterly charming throughout the movie that you can't help but love him through the whole thing. You almost want him to win, except, it's John McClane, and so John McClane has to win. But oh my god, Hans Gruber. Evil, sarcastic, conniving, clever. Even when things go wrong, he doesn't seem to be utterly perturbed because he knows he can recover and get what he needs by the end of the movie, no matter what. And all this strength comes from Alan Rickman, who was just an incredible actor. I think he was as charming off screen as he was on. Nobody seems to have a bad thing to say about him, ever, really. I'm not going to go over his filmography because, it's too long and you can do it. Let's just say, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, where he's in his own little movie inside of it as a medieval rock star. And Harry Potter is what everybody seems to be talking about, in addition to Hans Gruber. Hans Gruber died. Oh my God. It's just terrible. So you should really just go out and watch all of those movies. Well, you should definitely watch Labyrinth and Die Hard. Tromeo and Juliet is an acquired taste that you don't need to acquire to love Lemmy, because you can just listen to Motorhead albums if you love Lemmy, which you should. Well, it's Lemmy, come on. A lot of people are worried about Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen, but they're both well into their 70s, so I think they're safe right now. The one you have to be worried about is Tim Curry, because he is 69 and English and sings. So, he is in the line of fire right now. So send your prayers to Tim Curry, or send him blood or whatever he needs so that he can keep going on and on and on and on forever, because we can't lose another one so early. We're only like 3 weeks in the new year. What the hell? Hopefully next week it's going to be less depressing and morbid, and I'll see you then.